Yes, and a very good morning to you. Thank you for sticking with us. Asante sana. And of course, we proceed with this show. If you've just joined us, good morning, Kenya continues right here on KBC Channel 1. My name is Aguko, and it is a pleasure being with you this morning. Eye on Politics starts now. Let's take a look at what is making headlines in our dailies as we dissect matters concerning what is taking trends this fine Monday morning. And of course, I have in studio joining me to my far right, Daniel Orogo, governance and political expert. Next to me is Dr. Joseph Rotich, the governance expert and economic analyst. Karibuni sana.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Good morning. And I know it's been a while since we interacted on set.
I think Ram, when you are away, a lot of things have happened in this country.
I know.
So feel welcome.
I'm glad. Dan?
Yes,
happy to see you.
Good to be back and good to see you once again. Hoping that we are able to delve into matters making headlines and matters importance in this country.
And of course, as we talk about all this in the headlines, let's take a look at what is on our dailies. And first things first, on the front page of the Daily Nation, cult of death. That is on the front page of the Daily Nation. That's a splash there. A massacre as 39 bodies exhumed from mass graves. The shocking deaths by starvation of members of a suspected cult continued to be unearthed yesterday, with 18 more bodies exhumed at Shakahola village in Kilifi County, even as authorities finally acknowledged that the scale of the atrocity is a massacre. And the police now also suspect that some of the victims did not fast to death, but were actually killed before being buried. And as the search enters the fourth day today, the toll can only go up. And this is also what is being focused on in many of our dailies here. Also on the Standard, they have that particular conversation together with the People Daily, and Dan also on the Star there, also focusing on that. The number of grave sites that the police have identified on the 800-acre land associated with Pastor Paul Mackenzie of the Gospel of the Good News International Church is now 15. That is the number of grave sites that have been identified on this piece of land. And of course, I don't know if my producer has that particular story that was filed by our news team this morning. 18 bodies exhumed as cult deaths termed as massacre. That is also in the this particular paper. Discovery of more bodies yesterday brings the number of victims to a total of 39. 39. And this is what is making headlines today. Do we need to have a regulation, especially when it comes to religious matters? Do we need to have regulations in this particular area? Kenyans, some are outraged by the mass deaths. And of course, the police now suspect that some of the people might not have fasted to death. There was one body that was found with a man who was well-dressed, whose body appeared to be okay. What do you think about this? Let me start with you, Dan. Cult of death. Kenyans express outrage as now the government is now taking matters into its hands. They are now handling it. Do we need to have a conversation on how people should be careful, especially when it comes to religion? I believe that is very important.
Well, well, Ram, you see, the stories are very grossy. And when this story investigation were unearthed to see exactly what are the causes around Malindi and the environment, especially around the church that is led by Mr. Mackenzie. I think let's put this into context first before asking whether there can be regulations or not. we are at a point when someone says that the religion is an opium of the masses.
Yes.
That an opium, it's something that gives you a relief out of your stress and out of your frustration, and promises you hope, in the background of, hopelessness. Religion must be very distinguished from a form of spirituality, because religion is now a body that has misguided, has misled, and this is attributed to one particular religion, and that is Christianity. We have not seen this thing happening in a mosque or in Islam, and we haven't seen this thing reported in Hindu
or Buddhists,
or Buddhist as you put it. But it is happening in the whole society of a church and of a church setting. And this is very unfortunate, because we have seen people, and such circumstances put us at a very, very critical point, especially as believers of Christ. Because we have pastors and church leaders who have weaponized and have misinterpreted the Bible to mislead people, instead of preaching the doctrinal, what is inculcated in the holy books. And you actually see whether those that are captured in the mainstream media or those that are making cycles into the social media are actually pointing a direction where there is a mislead in the way we present the teachings of the Bible. And so the question is now coming whether the form of churches that are currently sprouting should be regulated or not. And I want to be very categorical. I would say that sometimes now, if this is the way we are going, even in the freedom of worship that is inculcated in our constitution, I think it's something that needs to be reviewed and needs to be amended.
I'm looking at what you've said, Daniel. You've said about the word, and you're saying interpretation of what is being preached.
Yes, remember what I said, it is weaponized to mean that it is taken out of context and have been taken so extreme to the point where those who are vulnerable within the masses believes nothing else, as opposed to what the preachers and these guys in the pulpit is telling us.
Right.
But allow me to say also one thing before Rotich comes in. The silence of the political leaders from the coast, the silence of the church leaders in this country. The only church that I have seen that has made statement is Legio Maria, and I've seen that in the press that yesterday I saw. I am looking at where is all the apostolic leaders who have been very vocal on matters of politics. Where is the conference of the Catholic bishops to condemn this thing as an outright immorality, as outright something that must be condemned and must be taken seriously, even as the government fast-track this issue to bring justice to those who are affected?
Very pertinent question. Dr. Rotich, what do you think about that? My people suffer for lack of knowledge, says the word. Are we seeing that case happening? People suffering for lack of knowledge. Is it misinterpretation? Is it manipulation? Or are we just so gullible? Is it because Kenyans are suffering so much that they need anything? A drowning man clutches at a straw.
I think, before I go to that direction, Ram, there is something that is... let us consider the whole matter, Ram, as a big shame to the country. It is a shame because we have never had genocides. We have never had civil wars in this country. Yet when you discover mass graves where people were parried unnoticed, where were the security agents when all these things were taking place? Parrying one person, two people, two, three, until over 50 people, my friend, in a civilized nation like this country, without any notice. We have a sub-chief, we have a chief, we have the surrounding security people. I mean, how did it happen? I'm still asking myself, my brother Ram, how did it happen in the first place?
Remember, they were starving themselves to death.
It's not about starving. When the burial is done, there is what we call the burial permit. There are permits that are issued before any burial, any person is buried.
Well.
So, who issued the burial permit for all these people? Orogo. I mean, my brother Orogo. So even before we talk about managing the registration of churches or managing the administration of churches or doing all sorts of things, but the people's welfare, the people's properties, the people's lives must be safeguarded by the nation.
Wow. And I'm looking at the political leaders that are there. What do you think about the religious leaders, rather? Their stake in this?
And let me tell you, there has been a lot of competition among the churches in this country. The registration of churches in this country is done almost on a daily basis. And this is something, of course, that the government's responsibility is to check into the kind of churches that are registered. Because I don't call this one a church, I call this one a cult.
It has been termed as a cult.
I've never come across a church that murders, a church that kills.
But look at it, it's called Good News International Church. Good News International Church.
But I can tell you, Ram, this is a cult. It is not a church. A church cannot kill. A church cannot kill. And going by this way, Ram, I think the government should in future relook into the operations of these churches in their respective places so that we can nip this thing in the bud before it happens.
Again, regulation. When
you talk about regulation, Ram, regulation may mean more than what you are referring to. Regulate how the registration of churches. You know, what regulation means that you have to deny others, you have to, or rather manage the process of the administration. The churches must be free in the first place. They must do, but the security agents must always learn or try to know what these churches are doing. There was this mushrooming, whatever, the charges that are turned actually political in the coast that ended up killing so many people. So in this case of Kilifi, my brother Ram, it is something that should not happen in the 21st century.
Dan, your thoughts on the same, and on this particular angle, my interest is drawn to the fact that something like this can happen in the 21st century. Now, there are so many beliefs when it comes to religion. And when I look at social media, some Kenyans are saying that we've been brainwashed, sometimes even sweep or wash the streets for some religious leaders. At other times, we have cases where people starve themselves because of religious leaders. While in other cases, we've seen families break and they say, you know what, I am traveling because some religious leader is coming. They leave their families to go to some far distance because of religious leaders. My conversation this morning, if Kenyans are able to get content from religious leaders and act in such a manner, to the point that they believe. I'm looking at this particular story here, and let me read a comment or something that was written on the Daily Nation. They found, they looked into the premise of where the followers of Mackenzie were, and they found some written words, inscriptions on some of the tables and chairs. And in one of them was written, maisha ya jangwani na yaweza, mambo yote katika Yesu anitiaye nguvu. Meaning, I am ready for life in the jungle. I leave all to Jesus Christ who gives me strength. Kenyans can do anything because of religion, this particular area.
It's not.
How can we?
Yeah.
And you'll tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
how can we ensure that there is safety in our churches, that there is soberness in our churches, and that we know the churches that are teaching the true word? As you've said, we do not see these things happening in other religions.
Yeah, and by the fact that the Constitution really enshrined and made Kenya, not only religious but a multi-religious society.
Yeah.
That in itself, and also went ahead and affirmed that there is freedom of worship. Clearly in the Constitution, and that gives a right that all the state actors and non-state actors, recognize that Kenya as a republic and Kenya, as a democracy, there is a freedom of worship. The problem, like I've said, is when religion goes to bed with politics, and when these two institutions merge, Ram, you understand, all the way from French Revolution, and you could have seen if you read through history, when the French oligarchs decided to use religion, to weaponize the masses. And until revolution occurred, when now the Constitution, by then French in 1880s, decided to separate the church from politics. And that is how there was a little bit of calm. We are in a country where each and every political period, the pulpit and politics are one and the same thing. And therefore, the church leaders welcome so much of some very unusual quarters, as so unusual. 58 bodies find buried, and as you've given, some of them do not show any case of starvation. Some of them, I know the toxologists and all these people and the government pathologists would give us an account, especially after doing all these, to let us know exactly what are the cause of death. But some of them, as you've alluded to, and from what you're reading in the public record documented by the newspapers, do not show any form of starvation to death. I mean, it was on pictures. When you could see some people, even some, I saw a woman really on cameras who did not even want to be saved.
Exactly.
Who did not even want to be taken out of the jungle. This is a matter of high spirituality, by the sense that it is even above what you're saying. It is even above being brainwashed. This is what we call religious radicalization. This is exactly what you're seeing in Kilifi. It is to the extreme when someone's life has been compromised, to the point where their spirituality is elevated, ready for death, not ready to live. But as you said, what is the point of salvation to this issue? The point of salvation to this issue is would predict that it is important for us to go the Rwandan way. And let me correct you, it is not unique to the Kenyan situation. Rwanda was going to that direction. They only realized that some aspect of the 1994 Rwandan genocide was sponsored by such radical religious extreme. You remember when people were beginning to even call for ethnic cleansing with regards to religious radicalization in the Rwandan genocide. That is when President Paul Kagame said, religious is becoming a threat to the national stability. It is becoming a threat to the progress of some religion. And this is why I am now agreeing. Before I didn't agree. But I am now going on record and saying that just as the way we want the political leaders to meet some qualification threshold, if they would want to go for leadership positions, we require them to at least have obtained a degree. We require them to at least have cleared with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to show that to some level they are not, they are not attributed to have done some criminal activities. You and I know, and Dr. Rotich, know that even as you apply for certain careers in this country, you will be asked to produce a police abstract, a certificate of clearance. I would ask that these are some of these stiff regulations that must be given to to religious leaders, at least a theological qualification. I'm not calling it a degree, but you must have a theological understanding of some of these things that you...
And one thing that I want to also state is, though that Daniel, you've mentioned that, but we do have such kind of regulations. They're there for the church.
No.
They are
there. I agree that they are there, but they're not fast track. They are not fast track in any way that is... How many churches could even, if we have non-governmental board in this country strictly regulating the operations of NGOs? Do we have STEM institutions similar regulating, the institutionality of a church? I think this is one of the things. I call for institutionality of a church. In this sense, we must have an authority that regulates the institution church in this country.
Dr. Rotich, how can the government come in, bring sanity to this situation?
I think the government, Orogo, should stick to its work, security. They must provide the security of lives, security of properties of all Kenyans, irrespective of their beliefs. And in this case, Ram, when we talk about the qualification, in this case, the well-established churches are established on spirituality. It's not established as by the degrees and the qualifications that they have.
All right.
So in this case, it's about the spirit. So we, at the moment, Ram, we have what we call professional pastors, and we still have also the spiritual pastors. And I want to tell you also that the churches have been infiltrated by the cultism. So in this case, that is the role of the government now to know which one is which. Is it a cult or a church?
How do the government know that? That's what I'm asking.
No, let me tell you, yes. Any act, and let me tell you, when you talk about the government and the security, or my brother, there are Christians also who are in this government. They are not, when you talk about the government, these are not in isolation. The government is not in isolation with the churches. They are also the churches by themselves. So in this case, getting to know which church is a church, a true church, it is very easy, Ram.
Yes.
So if say there is a church that kills,
yes.
There is a church that preaches murdering, like the one that we were witnessing in Kilifi, is that a church? That is not.
I want us to move forward, but of course I welcome your feedback from home, wherever you're watching us from. The hashtag is Good Morning Kenya, at Ram Aguko and at KBC Channel 1. Give us your thoughts in regards to these particular matters. What are your thoughts?
Ram, I want to correct Dr. Rotich.
Briefly, within 30 seconds, yes.
You cannot really control spirituality, but you can control the doctrinal foundation of any fundamental church or religion in this country. That's what we are disagreeing on.
You've had your rejoinder.
In this church yesterday, yes, where we are saying, did you hear there is an air hostess who sold a land and joined this particular church? Have you not heard there are people, professors, doctors, lecturers, and dons who've given up their work and decided to join? Do you control spirituality? but what I am saying is, even as much as matters of spirituality are matters you cannot see and you cannot control, it is important to lay a foundation of a doctrinal belief and a foundation of an institution that can operate on it.
I want us to move to another conversation here.
Just an explanation, Mr. Ram. Every tree is known by its fruits. Yes. Every tree is known by its fruits.
Yes.
Whatever you bear, it is known. So in this case, if there is a church in your locality, the fruits are known of that church.
The fruits are known.
Yeah. So
now,
you cannot tell me, you cannot tell about
a separate conversation. And of course, this conversation doesn't end today because still investigations are ongoing. Yeah. They are still going to day 4 today of searching for the more bodies on this particular site. For me, it is a very sad state.
A very sad story of
affairs.
Very sad.
Very sad.
In a civilized nation like Kenya, it's a sad story.
Kenyans, let's be alert. Don't believe everything you're taught.
There is no religion that kills.
I want us to move to yet another thing here, and this is concerning what President Ruto said.
President William Ruto says Kenyans will contribute 3% of their income and kickstart the journey towards owning a house modeled around the National Social Security Fund. Every employee who contributes 3%, the law will compel their employer to also contribute 3% to the housing kitty.
Tuko na housing fund ambayo tunataka kila Mkenya a contribute pesa kidogo. 3% of your income, 3% of your salary. Kama unapata shilingi 10,000, 3% ni shilingi 300 kila mwezi, uweke katika hiyo hazina. Pale mbele tutakusaidia vile utanunua nyumba. Kila mfanyikazi wa serikali ambaye atatoa sehemu ya mshahara yake 3% kwa mambo ya housing, na sisi kama serikali tutampatia 3% every month ya salary yake, so that we can create a fund that will assist the people of Kenya to acquire homes.
President Ruto says the government's plan of increasing members' contribution to the National Social Security Fund has helped the country increase its savings.
Mimi nimefurahi kwamba ile sheria ambayo ilikuwa inatulazimu ati tutoe kwa hazina ya NSSF shilingi 200, sasa tumebadilisha hiyo sheria, na kuanzia miezi miwili iliyopita sasa tunatoa 6% of everybody's salary, na employers wanatoa 6%. I want to tell you the good news. In just 2 months, we have doubled the amount of money that we are saving as a country.
He says the move will help the country manage its foreign debt by borrowing locally. The president says the government is also working with the county government of Nairobi to clean and make the city green.
Mambo ya greening ya Nairobi, akimaliza supplementary budget, mimi nitamuongezea pesa tuajiri vijana 10,000.
Yes, and that is what I want you to air in your thoughts in regards to that. The president is working on making the country move forward. Dr. Rotich, let me come to you. What do you think about the statements of the president? 3%.
I think I would have to look at this way, Ram. The idea of having Kenyans contribute 3% of their salary towards this housing kit is a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
A brilliant idea in the sense that Kenyans will be made to own homes where in the first place they would not have had one. And if the promise that the government will in future help these individuals who are contributing the 3% towards that kitty will be assisted to own homes in this country, I think it is a very brilliant idea. And in so many cases, Ram, I know we've been contributing. I've also had, I'm a member of a housing circle in my employer's circle. And that has really worked well. And if this is something that is initiated by the government, that will ensure every civil servant in future to own a home, I think it's a brilliant idea. I don't see any problem.
And it can work.
The only thing that I would have wished the government to look into is to agree with the civil servants. You see, you are entering into one man's house. You want to deduct my salary. So you must have a way of negotiating with me. You have to tell me, yes, Rotich, this is the plan that we have for you. And this plan can only be actualized if only you contribute this. Then I will say yes or no. I think that is something that, because Kenya is a participatory country, whenever we decide of anything, we must also, we must agree to disagree or agree to disagree. So in this case, I think that is the only thing that I would have wished the government should really ask the people, that this is the plan that we have for you. And that if you are willing, you can also come up with this amount. That would have gone a long way. And of course, if you cannot give directives that this is what is going to happen, I may not need a house, and then what will happen? So in this case, it is a brilliant idea, but we must look into it in a more deeper way. And then on the issue of, you were talking about the mass demonstration. I think, Mr. Ram, while you were away, we have done a lot of demonstration in this country, and some have beared fruit, some have not beared. The fruits that it paired is that the government actually opened doors for negotiation.
Bipartisan.
Yeah, for this bipartisan. I think that's the fruits that, but so far, while we look the whole thing to be very near, but it is still very far, because you saw His Excellency expressing that he would wish to be given time to develop this country, to fast track and meet the challenges that Kenyans are facing. And I think also is very passionate in seeing that the Kenyans' lives are actually improved. And that is basically what is there, Orogo. But I want also to tell you, Mr. Ram, very soon, in less than 6 months, 7 months, we shall not be talking about prices in this country of soaring prices of food grains. because I come from Trans-Nzoia, whereby it is very promising that in 6 months' time we shall be having plenty of maize. In fact, very soon we shall encourage the government not to import any maize grain from any other country, because we believe we shall supply enough. Our biggest worry now in Trans-Nzoia is that we may not really get up this price. We would wish that the price should remain high, because we want that price to be paid to Kenyans who are actually struggling and toiling in their respective areas. So I'm not asking that we will have the prices high, but what I'm also asking the government is that when they reduce the cost of fertilizers to 3,500, they should have also commensurate the same by reducing the fuel cost, because what was saved here was eaten by the fuel. And that is something, Orogo, that maybe you maybe look into and encourage our great nation, that we have to look at the prices of fuel, and that is the most modern thing.
It's like this social media clip where someone digs a hole, and then there's another that is returning sand to the same hole as another. The other return sand.
And basically what you saw, Mr. Orogo, and you see, when the government talked loud about reducing the prices of the farm inputs, we are talking about the seeds were not reduced, of course, but I have heard somewhere Kenya Seed is promising that come next year, they will also follow the suit of reducing the cost of seeds. But with the fertilizers, they have already reduced to 3,500. But of course, my big request to the nation, Orogo, and is that if this thing is not done to the fuel, if the cost of fuel will still remain soaring high, I think it will not be very fruitful, because whatever we save here, it will be eaten on the other side. And that is basically what we are facing as a country.
Orogo, let me come to you in regards to that particular matter. You can chip in. Do you believe that this will work and it will help save our country, especially considering that the fact that the president is asking for time to work? Your thoughts?
What time to work? This is what I keep on asking. What time?
What time?
To do what and how? Because
hold that thought. What time and how? I want us to take a short break, and then we will be back.
But I'll answer.
No. It's
you
already spoken.
No, I'll answer
and disrupt.
No, you asked me a question, my brother. You asked me how.
I want us to take a short break, and then we'll be back with more right here on Good Morning Kenya. Let's take that break. We'll be back in a bit. Keep it on politics. Do not go too far.
Every Monday evening, we take you back where the action happened live. We'll let you know what you missed, even if you were present.
And our goal is to continue supporting our own.
From the latest celebrity buzz,
fashion,
music,
and all manner of youth talents,
the Grapevine cameras rove all week to bring you the latest in the enormous entertainment scene.
Watch Grapevine every Monday at 10 p.m. and the rerun on Tuesday at 2 p.m. only on KBC Channel 1, baby.
Engage us on Facebook and Twitter, #Grapevine on KBC. Let us know what is happening in your area code, because you know what they say, if you did not see it on Grapevine,
then it most probably never happened. Bah!
Ain't nobody gotta tell you what you gotta do.
After the dust settled on rigorous campaigns, Kenyans are waiting for elected leaders to deliver on their pledges.
Have you used the hustler fund?
When your children sleep hungry, when you can borrow 500 or 1,000 shillings and they have some food on the table.
So the 500 you're giving me now is my purchasing power has literally been diminished comparing to probably even January or December.
But how have the leaders performed so far?
In terms of the amount of money that is being disbursed, the minimum being 500 shillings. How do you scorecard that?
No, that I'll give it a 2 out of 5.
2 out of 5.
1 out of 5.
I'll still give it 5 out of 5.
Every week, we bring you an honest assessment of the national and county governments.
What is the impact of the Hustlers Fund?
There are people who borrow praying they don't have to pay back. For example, they pray that the owner dies.
The Scorecard. Every Tuesday at 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1.
Thank you so much for being with us right here on KBC Channel 1. It's a pleasure being with you. And of course, we continue. Eye on Politics is on. The hashtag, as always, is Good Morning Kenya. Ensure that you engage with us at Aguko, which is my handle, and at KBC Channel 1, the official station handle. Remember, we are also live www.kbc.co.ke on our website. And of course, I am with Daniel Orogo and Dr. Joseph Rotich. Karibuni sana.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for sticking with me this morning. It's been heated since we started. And Dan asked a very pertinent question before we took that break.
Yeah.
Let me head over to the Standard newspaper. I highlighted the Daily Nation. Let me move to the Standard, where we have housing fund to take 3% of salary. And this is what we have been looking into before we took that break. President William Ruto has announced plans for housing fund that will see Kenyans contribute 3% of their income, which will be matched by their employers to enable them buy homes. And Dan asked a very interesting question there, and I know you will ask that once I give you that time. The head of state, according to the Standard newspaper, written there, the head of state who was speaking during the official opening of a new sanctuary at the Friends Quakers Church that is in Donholm Estate yesterday, said that the contribution will enable the approximately 700,000, get that number, 700,000 civil servants to own houses under the affordable housing project. Dr. Rotich says that it will work and it's a good thing. Even so, he says civil servants ought to be consulted so that there is a balance. And of course, on the Standard, Ruto says Kenyans will now pay between 4,000 shillings and 10,000 shillings mortgage for 15 years. Remember, this is information you need to know. 4,000 and 10,000 shillings, within that range is the mortgage plan that you're going to be paying for 15 years. And Nairobi is going to get 1 billion Kenya shillings for waste management that will be used to generate electricity. Dan, will this work?
Well, we can draw lessons, and you know, I like putting things into context for maybe arriving into conclusion whether it works.
Yes.
As opposed to Rotich, Dr. Rotich, who already knows that this will work, without not really looking at what are the modalities. You know, well, Ram in 2018 there was a similar proposal, you know, by the former regime. You know, according to what I'm seeing, was to raise funds for the construction of 5,000 housing units. You know, that was in the Kenyatta regime, and it seems that the current president is treading on the same grounds.
Affordable housing.
You know, affordable housing that was part of the Big Four agenda with the last government. Okay?
Yes.
And then also looking at how he's treading on the same grounds, it definitely tells you that the similar fate, you know, of the previous regime is going to meet the fate of these proposals as well. And I like what Dr. Rotich actually acknowledged, you know, in his, you know, as a point of, you know, putting a conjecture in what he says. He says that this must not be a government declaration, you know, to push it on the throat of Kenyans. and civil servants, to be deducted a compulsory 3%, to be sent to NSSF or any other saving kit.
How else can affordable housing be achieved if not through this?
And this is what I said, that again, we are met by the requirements of the Kenyan law that really guides on how such initiatives should be taken. And that's why I said, look at what happened in 2018. The same problem where the president makes a declaration and tries to implement it without not really looking at the legal landmines that is ahead. What happened in 2018 case when the Labor Relations Court halted that, citing lack of public participation? Is this the same thing that I have seen? And Rotich has admitted that it seems that the government made a declaration and forcefully making something to work without necessarily going through the processes that are required for a government policy initiative to be initiated. In this, I mean that such a proposals need to pass through other institutions. It needs to pass through the other arms of government. To ratify the executive can actually fast track the agenda. As we speak, it seems that it has to go through the legislature, that it has to go through the hands of citizens in the process of public participation. And in the absence, in the lack of that, someone will run to call to hold this process. Similar fate to 2018 initiative. That is one thing with regards to this kind of declaration. And I am also seeing the modalities of the realities of this working. Let me tell you this. In Kibera, where there has been a pioneer initiatives, I mean, the president has gone there like 3 times, to pilot this particular program. I want to tell you that this was a mortgage. This is going to be a mortgage. This is going to be a compulsory deduction. This is going to be a loan on Kenyans. And who are they saying is targeting to deal with? They're citing that a number of citizens in this particular city, for example, in this particular urban settlement in Nairobi, the majority of them are actually staying in the informal settlements. And that by design is that they are targeting people who are residing in the informal settlements. Questions need to be raised. What is the income of these particular residents? And if you are deducting them the amounts that I've seen, 4,000, 6,000, 10,000, this is the ideal deductions that have been proposed. How much are these people earning? For example, if the stakes are alluding that there are people that are living in less than $1 a day, so you calculate that and you want to deduct them 4,000, 6,000 monthly. The question is, how long with the target of this mortgage, how long are they going to raise this and to pay this with the target that the government is going to stake? That is a question. No, he says that he's going to answer. You wait. I just said it's a question. Question 2 that I want to raise with regards to this issue. There's sometimes UN Habitat through the United Nations Habitat, this government pioneered some programs on the informal upgrading in Kibera and in Mathare. That was supposed to be a free housing. That was supposed to be, if there is a word, people are granted, people are upgraded. And sections of Kibera residents from Soweto were asked to relocate and go to some areas in Langata, Otiende around Otiende area, to occupy those spaces. Do you know what happened to some, you know what happened? The people who were asked to go and stay, what did they do? They relocated back to the informal settlements and sold those housing to the rich. As we speak, if you can drive through Southern Bypass to a place called Otiende where they call Canaan, go and see if those people occupying those houses are people who are living in Kibera. So tell me.
If they're the same people who acquired them before.
Yes, go and just find out. And the media can do their own investigation and do their own. Find out the percentage of the people who are there and who are relocated way back in 2010, 2012. So some of these initiatives, that's what I'm saying, they might be good. But the realities, the context at which they are pioneered, might not really be good that the government needs to look at.
Dr. Rotich, you've heard the questions and the concerns that Dan has raised.
I think Mr. Orogo is very much aware that in 2018, when the handshake actually came in, it halted. No, I'm telling you.
No issue about this.
Affordable housing, affordable health. I mean, that is basically what happened. Orogo.
Yes.
I mean, I want to tell you the truth. You should learn some of these things.
Which is okay.
When there was a change of handshakes, there was also an influence that came by after the whole thing was done. You see, we don't deny those things. They are actually there and they are facts. So, according to what my brother asked Mr. Ram about the president asking for time to fast track to give Kenyans what he pledged to Kenyans, it is because of this kind of demonstration that we have been hearing, high demands. So, I mean, I'm asking you a question.
Honestly.
So, what the president needs actually is for any investment, for any having investment in Orogo, we need, a viable and amicable atmosphere in this country. We need a peaceful environment. Investors cannot invest in a place where there is some chaos. I mean, you have seen we have lost millions, Orogo, through demonstrations. People are closing their businesses. Who compensate them by the end of the day?
And speaking of that, Fadhili, get me that particular clip here. You're talking about the benefits that we can acquire if we remain peaceful. I'm looking at Nairobi County, for example. Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja revealed that the county has managed to increase revenue collection by, get this, 673 million Kenya shillings. And this is in the last 3 months due to support of the president, and they have managed to pay salaries on time. Take a look at this.
Nairobi had no medicine in hospitals. Today, I would dare anybody uende kwa hospitali yoyote ya county ya Nairobi ukose dawa uniambie. Tumenunua dawa ya 244 million that is in each and every facility, from the dispensary at the bottom mpaka Mama Lucy na hospitali zote katikati ya hiyo.
Let nobody try to distract the president's focus. Let him implement his program, work on resuscitating the economy, and let us not work on other people's emergencies.
Taifa letu la Kenya.
Meanwhile, President Ruto has asked the opposition to take advantage of the bipartisan committee to address issues of concern. The president says violent protests have not achieved anything but disrupt and destroy the livelihoods of Kenyans.
If we can achieve that,
I think, my brother,
Dan, I'm coming to both of you. Facts be said. No, I'm giving both of you time. I'm giving both of you time.
I'm not even talk.
Let him finish. Let me say, but the truth is here. Let's talk facts.
Exactly.
This is happening because of
a peaceful environment.
A peaceful environment
that the Kenyans are inculcating.
Yes.
So basically what I'm telling you now, what Sakaja is telling us is about our own environment in Nairobi. He's not talking about even the foreign investments. They should leave peace that we heard the other day after stopping the throwing of stones.
We do not know how to interrogate these facts that sometimes are said within these platforms, including the church. And I was here saying that some of pulpits are becoming a dangerous places of peddling lies, where these politicians stands and peddle lies, a lot of it, from the national government to the counties to the governors. So those facts still needs to be interrogated. I will not sit here at the table and say that is an absolute truth. I'm saying, no, I haven't finished. That I was responding
30 seconds.
to the point where you said.
30 seconds.
The other thing that you mentioned here, let me also say this. We can't keep our heads on the sand and say, because of this peaceful, because of stone throwing, this country now generates a lot of revenue.
because of the lack of it.
Why lack of it? Sometimes we really need to interrogate facts. That's why I'm saying I'm not sitting in this panel and letting Dr. Rotich go away with lies. Okay? First of all, let us know that for us to have become into this situation where people are now throwing stones, like he said, and by the way, who tells you that is, Azimio demonstrators throwing those stones?
I have not said that.
Can't we have people who, for example, Kenya Kwanza, who are disenchanted by the state of promises after failed promises, and are now joined on this?
Now,
so let me say, the lack of we threw the baby with the bathwater. when we decided to politicize the BBI, and they're back to it, Ram. It is in the public domain. Mount Kenya is back to discussion of the BBI. Why? Because we politicize, especially issues that are allocated in the BBI. There was a provision of dealing with the winner takes it all in this country. There was the issues of dealing with structuring opposition. Had we listened to some of these provisions where they were proposed, could have cured us of this mess.
All right.
So whether we like it or not, and I'm not saying demonstration and destroying people's property, I can't sit on the panel and justify that.
Now,
I am saying that the country, people must demonstrate their dissatisfaction to the level where it is peaceful, where it is accountable, and no one can stay and say that this is unacceptable, because this fact is inculcated in the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is what brings us to the end of this conversation today. Thank you so much, Dan. I know. Dr. Rotich, we have to end the show there.
It will not be very fair.
We have to end the show there.
But anyway, let me thank...
we would want to come and discuss the issues of demonstration.
Let me thank you, Ram.
And the issues of constitution, even if time do not allow us.
Let me thank you, Ram.
My director has given you time, a minute to have your...
We are so grateful, Ram, that we are giving our opinion that can also be analyzed by the nation.
Yes.
Our facts, Orogo, is not law. It's not a law. It is something that is subject to discussion by Kenyans. And what we are basically saying, this country needs peace if it has to continue.
True.
Where your right ends, Mr. Orogo, my rights begins.
True.
You cannot step on my business and expect me that I've taken care of your right when you are stepping on my right. So it is a high time, Kenyan stands on a high moral ground that we respect every citizen of this country. We respect not only the people, but also their properties, so that we can be able to be a respected nation. So in this case, what we are calling for, let us have a peaceful, coherent demonstration. That is what we are basically saying.
All right.
Why is not people?
Let's wrap it up there.
He has acknowledged that we need a peaceful demonstration, as opposed to his earlier stance when we were saying the right to peaceful demonstration is one thing that he has acknowledged, and I agree with
Thank you, Orogo. Thank you, Dr. Rotich.
I agree with it.
Yeah, and of course that is what brings us to the end of Eye on Politics. We are taking a look at the dailies, what is in the headlines, and news that are trending this fine Monday morning. My name is Aguko. Thank you so much for being with us. We are taking a short break, but we will be back with more right here on Good Morning Kenya. Doreen Arange is coming up next with Family Check.
Thank you.
Keep it KBC.